Jim Taylor. So tell me a bit about your journey. So what was that like, going from being a developer to having a team?
Every day is different and I'm constantly learning.
What's the difference trying to work kind of almost by yourself compared to working as part of a team? What did that feel like for you, and in terms of your productivity and your skill sets?
So yeah, and I'll probably touch on this, but I'm very much of a sort of a problem solver, and it's constant like evolution. How does it get better? And this was in the very early days of like being able to search Google for that type of information.
Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of The Few. Before we get started, I'm going to ask you for a favor. If you've listened to the podcast before and you feel like it's made an impact, or you've gained some insight that's helped you have a better day, that's helped you accelerate you to your destination to achieve your goals, whether your life journey's become a little bit easier thanks to the show, I just want you to subscribe quickly below. You can click now while you're listening to this. Even better is share the show. Tag The Few podcast on TikTok, Reels, Insta, you name it. Put it on LinkedIn. Let's help people achieve their dreams and organizations achieve the strategies, the destinations, the audacious goals that are going to make this world a better place. Thanks so much for all your support. Let's click subscribe and get on with the show. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Few. I hope everyone's had an amazing week. Very excited for our next guest. But before we go into the episode, please, if it's the first time you've seen, make sure you click below and subscribe to the channel. Or maybe you've been listening to a few episodes of The Few and you've just forgotten. That way we get more listeners, more ears and eyes on. More ears and eyes on mean we get bigger, better guests, a little bit like today's guest, Jim Taylor, who is the MD of Happy Dance. Jim, mate, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Boo.
So the few minutes with Boo format, we're going to have a quick look at what you do now, what it took to get to where you are today, Jim, and what does the future look like? Because you've kind of had one of those, what would typically be classed in leadership development, one of the most challenging transitions from being very focused in terms of being a developer and very domain excellence focused to now pop up as a managing director of your own company. Tell us a little bit about what you do now, Jim.
Of course. So yeah, I'm managing director of Happy Dance. Happy Dance is a SaaS career site platform. So we are part of a company called PH Creative, which is an employer branding agency that does employer branding, recruitment marketing, and career sites is just a part of that wider scope. So for the past nearly 4 years, I guess, I've been running a company with currently around 29 people. I think when we transitioned into Happy Dance and sort of separated away from the PH Creative group, we were a team of 14. So we're providing TA leaders, employee brand managers, those that are trying to attract the right talent with a career site solution. So it's obviously candidate focused, helping them.
What is a career site solution? What does that actually even mean?
That's a good question. So a career site is essentially the doorway for candidates to find a new career. So if you think about a candidate looking for a job, they're obviously going to go to the likes of Google and start searching, their titles, their skills, the location, and that's where we help our customers be visible in those search engine results by having a dedicated website, a career site that is focused on everything when it comes to working within that organization in terms of like the culture, the benefits, the perks, the diversity, and obviously the actual jobs themselves. So it's not necessarily just a jobs board. It's taking the employer brand messaging architecture in terms of what's the proposition and what it's like to work there, to educate the candidates, to convince them that it's either the right or the wrong actual career for them. So we work with lots of large organizations, predominantly in the US, lots of Fortune 500 companies, where we've been able to help them grow and attract more candidates and convert the actual right candidates to hire.
And that's how competitive it is right now to get good people into an organization. You literally need to build a custom website that speaks to them and enables them to make that decision and go, you know what, that's the business I want to work for. And if you don't have that, and I would presume, based on your background and the commitment that the organization has made to build a SaaS platform around it, the people you're attracting are incredibly tech savvy. And if you don't have this, you're probably going to set yourself up for less than ideal candidates. You're not going to be picking from the best part of the tree when it comes to the right apples to work in the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of that customer, as I say, we do work with large organizations. They recognize that a dedicated career site is the right solution, because you often find with small organizations that they'll just have a careers page with very limited information for the candidate. And candidates will spend roughly 7 to 8 hours researching. So they're not only looking at the career site, they want to look at social, Glassdoor reviews, whatever that may be, to obviously decide whether or not to apply for that role. So having a dedicated career site enables them to have specific user journeys for that audience and the right tone of voice, and being able to, and then for the customer being in complete control of that content. So having a really easy use of a CMS system, so that they don't have to lean on their corporate marketing teams to be able to update pages of content and publish jobs as well.
So tell me a bit about your journey. So what was that like, going from being a developer to having a team, and also, pretty heavy marketing focus as well, I'd imagine. I mean, you've gone from dealing with a problem, building a SaaS platform and building a great piece of technology, to running a company. What's that like?
Every day is different, and I'm constantly learning. I guess where I've come from, my original, I'm going to show my age here. My original background was graphic design. That's the type of career that I wanted to go into. And then at the time, I was in a band. I was in an indie band, a guitar band, where I was leading that to a degree. That lasted for about 8 years, and that's when I got into web design, because I wanted to build us a web page effectively, and that's when I started.
What was the band, mate? Can we Google it? Can we watch the YouTube videos?
I don't think you'll find it. So no, it's before the days of YouTube. It's so old now. We were called Iconoclast. Pretty well known in the city, Liverpool, and started doing tours and all that kind of stuff. So I'll go into the details of that. But I think that's where I started to hone some of my early leadership skills, in terms of trying to be the leader within that band. Um, so yeah, as I say, I stumbled into web design, started learning some skills there, and that's what brought me into my first job, which was a front end developer. I'd say it was more full stack. I was working in an IT company that I was responsible for just managing their website, and this was the days before. If you're familiar with development, as style sheet as an example, so how to make a web page look the way it does, and responsive wasn't even around in those days. Everything was built in tables. So that was sort of my early introduction. And then 5 years later, I spotted an opportunity to work with PH Creative as a developer. So it was a case of joining my own kind, being surrounded by actual experts who are designers and back-end developers, and learning and meeting all of these other different disciplines that I'd sort of tried to learn myself over time. So I probably learned more in the first 3 months of PH than I did in the 5 years.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying these episodes of The Few. If you are, if you feel like they're making an impact, you've learned something insightful, there's a little golden nugget of wisdom that you've been able to apply to your own life, let's share it with as many people as possible. The best way to do that is to leave a review. If you leave a review, we get more listeners on the show. If we have more listeners, we get bigger guests, and it's the big guests that live the big dreams where we're going to learn the most. And my job is to ask the questions that are going to help you on your own journey. So let's make this show as big as we possibly can. I'm fully committed, I'm passionate, and I'd love for you to show your support by leaving a quick review. How is that as well? Like, what's the difference trying to work kind of almost by yourself compared to working as part of a team? What did that feel like for you, and in terms of your productivity and your skill sets?
So yeah, and I'll probably touch on this, but I'm very much of a sort of a problem solver, and it's constant like evolution. How does it get better? And this was in the very early days of like being able to search Google for that type of information. You didn't have like Stack Overflow, and there wasn't a lot around how to do SEO effectively and PPC. It was just a case of try it, see what works, and iterate and continue, learn how to fail quickly and build up those skills. So I learned a lot in terms of like marketing and web development and design and account management just within the 5 years of the IT company. But coming over to PH and being surrounded by experts, I learned a lot more there as well. And when I joined PH, we were just a team of 12, now over 100. So my journey at PH was obviously that junior front end developer. Within about 5-6 years, I obviously scaled up and then moved into a senior front end developer, where I was managing other front end developers. But as I mentioned before, I started getting more involved in the production in terms of the operations, like embedding new tools like Basecamp at the time in terms of how to run projects, working closely with project managers, and then really understanding the A to B of how to deliver a career site. So it got to the point where it was about 6 years into my PH creative journey that I'd started moving in towards more operations. And I basically pitched to the CEO, Brian Adams. I said, look, I'd love to be some form of an ops manager, ops director type of role. And it was just, his trust in me, which he's always had in me, is just crack on, get on with it. Like, it sounds like the right thing to do. Obviously, I was almost like a player manager football type, where I carried on coding for about a year, and then I just recognised that I needed to do more of the ops side. At the same time, as I moved to PH and I'd left the band, I moved into Sunday League football management as well. So it was interesting that as I started to grow these management skills, I was learning to take things onto the football field and then bringing what I was taking from the football field into work. And obviously, it's a very different team when you've got like 14 hungover 18-plus-year-olds, kicking off when they haven't been chosen in the first 11 on a Sunday morning, how to deal with that, and then make those decisions within the 90 minutes, and then learning how to deal with people internally, like how to manage people was something that I've constantly strived to improve. I've always tried to
leadership's leadership though, right? I mean, that's the thing about it. Like, it is different contexts, but how to lead, how to influence, how to make decisions, they're the constant elements that every leader needs to be able to do effectively. Do you think that's, and do you see that benefit to be able to apply those skills across? I mean, you just said it then, it kind of feeds off itself to be able to learn from both of those environments and apply the lessons from each into each.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking about like people management. People management's obviously different from leading. Leading is like being clear with the vision, the mission, the direction, and making sure that everybody is aligned to that, so that improves communication, it improves well-being and the quality of the output. And I think one of the sort of things that I've started to really grow muscle around, or I recognised. I've done obviously many leadership courses with in my time here as well, and I've done one a couple of months ago where it was a bit of a refresher, and that the art of delegation was something that sort of stuck out for me. I think historically, just because we are such a small team, I've held on to things and I thought, I'll do it because I don't want to delegate that to somebody who can do it as well, but I recognise how busy they are. So that's something I've had to grow muscle around, and recognise that I can't be doing everything. I need to set the brief, give clear direction, the expectations, and support them where needed. So I'd say that's been a recent challenge in terms of leading people.
What does it look like moving forward? What are your career ambitions? Where can you take this brand? How is it now that you're as an MD also embracing that sales and marketing and front end, which is critical to any organization? And I've certainly seen folks who go from an operational function in a business to a leadership role across all functions, that sometimes the sales and marketing is the hardest part to get your head around.
Yeah, you've struck a nerve there. So sales and marketing is my focus right now. So I'm lucky to have grown my team, doubled in size in the last 2 years, where I've put an SLT in place, a senior leadership team. But the sales team is something that we have to scale quickly. And the reason is that we partnered up to start with. We didn't just go out on our own and do lead generation. We brought in some partners that were really fruitful and really defined our product offering and our operations and how we deliver. and brought on some exceptional brands. Now we just want to 10x that. Like, how do we do that quickly? So learning everything around SaaS sales has been a journey of mine for a good couple of months now, and that's the journey we're on right now. Is bringing in business development reps, more account executives, growing our customer success team so we can grow our customers so that they're happy and they renew. So I'd say that's the biggest learning curve for me. As I say, that's why I love what I do. It's that constant learning. Every day is different, learning new skills, and I'm learning a lot right now when it comes to scaling sales teams.
So what are three things that you would tell a leader if you had them for 1 minute that would make them more effective at what they do?
I would invest in yourself. So I think I always find a lot of huge benefit in doing things like leadership courses, or even if it's like these sort of, these 15-minute digest of books, that types of things. So definitely invest in yourself, because there's been specific books over time that have just like absolutely struck a chord at the right moment in time. So invest in yourself. I'd say obviously be accountable. You obviously have to deliver to a board, but you also have to support your team, and you have to show the rest of the team that you're accountable in a way that you are doing what you're asking them to do as well. So if I'm expecting them to deliver, they need to see I'm delivering as well. And I'd say the last point would be obviously give back. So when I talk about like investing in yourself and learning those skills, is to share them, is to speak to other leaders. I've joined many different types of communities where in the early days I had a lot of imposter syndrome around that. I just felt like, this is new to me. Why am I sitting around this table of business owners? But then when you sort of start to have those conversations and knock those walls down, you recognize that you've got really similar challenges, possibly just in different niches, or you're in a different part of that journey. But when you share those stories, it reflects back on you in terms of what you've been successful in and what you could have done better. But you'll also obviously fill those gaps as well that you might not necessarily know about. I remember somebody said to me about 3 years ago, when I was about to go onto this journey, and this leader said to me, "Don't underestimate support as part of your offering." And that was something that stuck with me. And this year we've really honed in on making sure our support team is best in class, versus like just delivering a great career site and then not being able to support that for the customers. Being really responsive and fast resolutions to any questions, queries, or issues.
That's fantastic. Hey, Jim Taylor, Managing Director of Happy Dance. Thanks for sharing your insights into leadership and being so generous with your time today. Thanks, mate.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Well, that wraps another episode of The Few. But before we go, I'd like to make a shout out to the team that make this podcast possible. The team at Afterburner, real fighter pilots who travel the world helping organizations close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. It's the fighter pilot mindset, the methodologies, the ways of working, or what Afterburner call flawless execution. It's the techniques and trade secrets the Air Force uses to turn the dream of becoming a fighter pilot into a reality. Whether you have a leadership offsite, leadership retreat, maybe it's the annual event for your entire organization, or a sales kickoff. From 2 people to 2,000, Afterburner inspires people to believe that we can lift our performance to another level. So reach out and learn the secrets fighter pilots use to win 98% of the time.